What's going on, everybody? Thank you for joining us on PackersNews.com. I'm Weston Hodkiewicz, joined alongside my boss, Mike Vandermause, and Press Gazette beat writer for the Packers, Rob Demovsky. Guys, we've finally reached Week 9 of the NFL season. For us, it's nice. Bye week for the Packers, probably even nicer given the injuries they have. Rob, starting with you, they're 6-3. Ryan Pickett said it. Aaron Rodgers said it. Good place to be at right now for this team, but what's your assessment here these first 8 weeks?
Well, considering that they were 1-2 and, all the distraction about the way the Seattle game ended, to have rebounded and ended up in the position they are is probably about, the best they could have done considering where they were after 3 weeks, but I still think 6-3 is a little bit behind where a lot of us thought they'd be at this point.
Mike, I purposely told Rob 8 weeks because I want you to talk about last week with the win over the Cardinals. 2 back-to-back games against teams that really didn't have that good of offenses, but the Packers were able to handle them pretty handily. Just what did you take out of that game and a lot of momentum to be had for the Packers going into the
Well, you look at both of these games, the Packers basically played without their top 2 receivers, their top running back, and of course you throw in all the other injuries they've had. I think they did what they needed to do to get the job done. I guess in talking about Rob's point about being 6-3, a little behind, they say you are what your record says you are. Except maybe when you're the Packers this year, because really, they're 7-2.
No, you know what? As nice as it might be for them to want to think that way, the reality is if they miss the playoffs by 1 game, they're not going to be like, you know what, we'll let you in because you really won that game in Seattle.
You don't think the NFL will do that?
I don't think so.
Well, anyway, this is in your mind anyway, in my mind, a 7-2 type team. The other thing that impresses me about
what else is in your mind?
The other thing that impresses me about this team is you look at the Texans and you look at the Bears, both 7-1. They've only lost 1 game, and who was that to? The Packers. And not just losing to the Packers, they got soundly whipped, both of those teams. So that is an indication that this Packers team is going to be in contention, that they can be a championship caliber club. We're going to get to injuries, though, because that could be the X factor there that stops their momentum.
I just want to say this right now. I really hope our Packers Pick'em contest doesn't come down to 1 game, because I think there's going to be a lot of controversy involved with all that.
I picked Seattle to win, and Seattle won.
And Rob is in first place, and you can see why he's taking
That's why he's
I don't understand this mindset at all. This is a punk mentality.
All right. I got to get control of the ship here. But, Mike, you brought it up, the injuries right now for the Packers. Rob, I'll start with you. They lost Clay Matthews. I think we talked about all the injuries they've had. They haven't lost, like, a huge core player. They've lost Greg Jennings, Jordy Nelson. Yeah. But that's the best defensive player they have right now.
One of the best in the league.
Yeah. Just what is the impact of that if he can't go for the next 2 weeks or 3 weeks, whatever that ends up being?
It's big because, their pass rush, it's twofold. 1, he's a great pass rusher. 2, teams have to pay extra attention to him. Arizona, they double-teamed him on about, 2/3 of the plays. So, it's just hard that, what are they going to do now? You don't have to double-team anybody, so you can really account for more in the pass rush and then not have to worry about him. But I still say, he's going to be back probably. The one guy that maybe is a little more concerning is Brian Bulaga. Not necessarily because T.J. Lang and Evan Dietrich Smith didn't fill it well, but because now they're 1 more injury away from, basically playing a guy who's never played before.
Right. Mike, with Clay Matthews right now, you take him out of that lineup. They have a guy they seem to like in Desmond Moses, but, he's just an undrafted guy, pretty raw. Eric Walden's playing better, but still only has 1 sack. What is the impact on that defense if they don't have
Wes, I'm going to tell you, I'm a big proponent of the playmaker theory, and that is that most NFL teams are pretty much equal. And the thing that separates them is the playmakers, the difference makers, the guys who single-handedly can go in and win games for you. And in the Packers' case, that would be Aaron Rodgers and Clay Matthews. You can have injuries across the board everywhere else and credibly be able to fill in. But those 2 guys, that's going to be really tough. And as I think Rob pointed out earlier this week in a story, when Clay Matthews was out in 2010, he missed basically 1.5 games, almost 2 games. Packers lost both of those games that they should have won against a bad Washington team, a bad Miami team. To me, that says that you lose your playmakers, just like if they lose Rodgers, they're done. If Matthews isn't back for that Detroit game in 2 weeks, that's going to be a tough game for them to win, I think. So it's going to have a big impact.
Yeah, not even to mention after the Detroit game, then you run into the Giants, who's one of the tougher teams they're going to see on their schedule. It'd be much like if we lost Rob here at the Press Gazette, the kind of adjustments we'd have to make. Guys, wrapping up, looking at this team going back, Mike McCarthy said it yesterday, or I should say on Monday, with the whole news conference, and that this is going to be something where now they have 5 division games coming up in the next 7 weeks after the bye week. This stretch, this NFC North is a lot better than I think everyone thought it was going to be as a whole. Just what do you see for them, Rob, starting off with, getting back out there against Detroit, who seems to be going in a good direction right now?
Well, the 2 road games right after the bye obviously will be difficult, Detroit and the Giants, but I can't remember a year where they had this many division games, all clumped together at the end of the season. Now, obviously, a couple of years ago, the NFL went to the thing where everybody's going to play a division game in Week 17, so that's going to, naturally skew more division games late in the year. But this is, a lot of. I think what's going to happen, assuming they win the games that we think they're going to win, I think that Chicago game is going to end up being for the division championship. If they win that game, they'll have the tiebreaker over the Bears. And might end up going on to win the division.
Well, for Mike, he's Rob. I'm on vacation. We will see you next week after the bye.